So this is actually an informal space for us to ask questions, to continue the conversation around this idea of well-being. And so I'm just going to open the floor and invite people to either just comment on what they've seen today or provide a question that we can pursue and continue on this topic of well-being. Has anybody got anything to ask or to say? Feel free to do so. I've lost my camera view for a moment there.
Can I respond to Marcus's question?
Thank you, Helen.
Kia ora everyone, I'm Helen, I'm Kaitaia. My role I've added into the Kauai Padlet is I'm an academic navigator, so I do academic support as well as student navigation, which basically means you help them in whatever areas they might be coming to you with. So a lot of my role is pastoral care based, and it's based in establishing relationships with students. When I first started in the tertiary space, I was purely a learning advisor, but realised I needed the 20 minutes at the beginning, and I had to go from a half-hour session to a 1 hour session because we needed that time for students to lay out all their stuff. So it's just over the years I've had to develop ways of dealing with it. I've got lots of little cards with little quotes on them, and sometimes they pick one out and they do that, but it's very much a juggling factor. I don't know if you want to ask more direct questions relating to that, or if you want to flick me an email or whatever, but I'm happy to help if you've got any questions.
Thank you, Helen. Has anyone got anything to contribute or to ask? Would you like to respond, Marcus?
Sure. So thank you, Helen, for responding. And your role sounds a lot like the role that we had, or when I first joined Toi Mai 10 years ago, where the pastoral care and academic support roles were combined into one person. And there's been some, I guess, differentiation between those two roles over the last 5 years or so, especially after mergers and so on. So the question we had was specifically relating to, now that they, in many of the institutes, have split the responsibility between academic support and pastoral care, how those two groups can work side by side more cohesively, given that they may be under different administration or managers. So that was where I was coming from, and yours is actually the best position, because you actually get to do both roles, and there was definitely advantages of having that joining of your mahi to both cover pastoral and academic support. I'm just wondering, in situations other than yours, where you can get that synergy, that that kaupapa of whanaungatanga going across your extended team, if you like.
The team that I work alongside with are based in our Whangarei campus. There are specific academic learning advisors, and they work alongside a navigator. Thankfully, we have the same manager, but I think there's more of a communication and there's a referral process that they use. But because they're all in the same physical hub, they will get that conversation going. But I guess if you're in a larger organisation, I mean, Nortech's pretty small compared to everyone else, so everyone's going to be different. Yeah.
Thank you both. Has anyone else got anything to contribute to this topic of well-being, extending either on what was shared in the presentations that went beforehand, or maybe you've got a new kind of line of thinking that you'd like to go along and share with us? I see we've got Lev has left a question here or something. I'm curious as to whether there is any kind of online tool that would allow students to easily ask anonymous questions during live in-person or online classes. My hope is that this would enable some students to ask questions without feeling embarrassed. I know that, for example, Moodle has anonymous forum options, but this is difficult to use in the moment as the tutor, etc., would need to be refreshing the page to view questions. Boy, that's a good question. Obviously, in this space on Zoom, we have private conversations that can occur. Has anyone got any good responses for Lev? True,
Yeah.
Karen.
There are tools that will do that. I don't know how well they would integrate into Zoom, however, but I've seen demonstrated tools where that you've got a lecturer actually in the classroom. This was before COVID, and there's a website that his students are going into and that he's made available. And some of my colleagues would be able to probably tell me more about that, but there's a conversation, a bit like the one that we're having here in chat, happening at the same time down the screen. And of course, they can be using an anonymous title rather than their names. There are some problems with that, though. I mean, the facilitator has to be a bit careful because there can be mischief happening in those spaces during the lecture. Yeah. I imagine that it will have come on a long time since before COVID, though. So does anybody else know of anything?
I think Ruth mentioned in her presentation that we have recently implemented for online students a sort of drop-in, which is a virtual, we call it a virtual drop-in, where students can go into a private conversation with a learning facilitator. It's not anonymous, but being one-on-one, it's private. And that's probably the best that we can do at this stage, I would think.
I'd be interested to know. I'm sorry, who was that?
Sorry, Tanya. Topeka Gosa here from UCOL.
Kia ora, Topeka. You go ahead.
I was a high school teacher until a couple of months ago, and a really basic thing I just said to the students was just send me an email. And so that would, obviously I'd have to refresh, but then I could either address the whole class, answer the question to the whole class so nobody's identified as being the person who asked, or I'd have a one-on-one with that student, just email them and say, hey, look, this question, to answer your question, we need, to go in depth or whatever, blah, 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 let's, see me at lunchtime or something like that. So it's a real basic, simple thing that I've used, but I guess it only works if you've got the students in class.
Yeah, our world is ever shrinking, isn't it? And before you know it, most of everything that we use is made available to everybody. So we have to be very thoughtful about protecting the privacy of our students. Has anyone else got any thoughts around well-being? Well, I'm thinking about something that has come up just recently for us. We've had lots of changes occurring across the institutes. If you're in Te Pukenga, I'm sympathising with you. I hear your voice loud and clear. Those of you who don't know, Te Pukenga is now our umbrella institute for all of the different polytechnics throughout Aotearoa, New Zealand, and we all sit underneath the umbrella of Te Pukenga, the entity Te Pukenga. And through this year, we've all had to adjust to that, and there's been highs and lows in that area. One concern that I've had was that we went from having multiple kai āwhina or people who are involved in pastoral care to reduced numbers as a result of these changes. And I am thoughtful, just in an earlier session with Joe, who was saying, does the way that we're organising ourselves, does it actually meet the student? Is it still student-centred? I'd like to ask that question of us right now when we're thinking about that holistic well-being of our students. Do we think that our services are still student-centred? Are there adjustments to be made? Have we made too many adjustments that we don't recognise ourselves? He pātai noa, this is just a question to maybe spur on some of your thinking. Anyone got any thoughts? No thoughts coming through at the moment. I don't want this either to be a beating up session, by the way. We're thinking positively here. We're trying to get some good solutions running. So just being very thoughtful. As a learning advisor, as an educator, what are the ways in which you go along and nurture your student or your students towards well-being? Yes, we provide our academic supports for them. We've made adjustments to make sure that we can meet them in different ways. What are the ways that you think would be valuable for us to know, the practices that you have? Please share.
I'll say something, Tania. Can you hear me?
We can. Thanks,
Okay.
Cynthia.
Kia ora, everyone. I'm one of Tania's workmates at Wintec. So I think just keeping good communication with our students is very important. So just one very small example, I've been helping a student who's working on a dissertation for a Master of, well, it probably doesn't matter what it is, but she was supposed to come and see me last week and emailed just beforehand to say that she wasn't feeling well, so wouldn't come. And then early this week, I found out from her supervisor that she hadn't submitted her next draft on time. So I could have just left that and thought, well, that's an issue between her supervisor and her. But because I had been seeing her reasonably regularly, I just flicked off a quick email to say, I just heard that you haven't managed to submit on time, just checking if you're okay. And so she replied to me pretty quickly and said, thank you for your care, and, just explained what had happened and that she would get the assignment into her supervisor. So just small things like that, keeping in touch with the students, to ask if they're okay and if there's any help that they need, perhaps giving them contact details for the pastoral care people, links to sources of online help, that type of thing, I think is good, just so that they know that you actually do care about them.
Thank you for sharing, Anthea.
Absolutely.
That's a brilliant idea. Thank you.
And brokering some of those introductions on their behalf with them.
Anyone else? And by the way, this wellbeing focus is not just for our students. We want to engage with our students and ensure that we uphold their wellbeing. I'm also very thoughtful about the wellbeing of our peers and us as teams and us as learning advisors. Is there anything that comes to mind that when you're thinking about that space?
Yeah, I think that when the roles of academic and pastoral care became separated, it's easy to put the pastoral concerns of the students to one side and just focus on academia. But it doesn't work like that, I don't think.
No.
And as you pointed out, the interface that we have with students for academic support is that much more effective when we also care about them. Yeah, no, that could be just as you said, just a little thing like a how's it going when you're walking past them one day in the library, or maybe drop them an email if you haven't seen them for a week or so, or give them a call, and those things I think matter hugely to students.
Thank you, Marcus. Anyone else like to share?
I was just going to say that I find kind of acknowledging that in conversation with Arkong is really helpful, because you're sitting there to work with academic stuff, but we know and they know that it's not in a separate box, and just raising that conversation kind of opens it up and makes it more okay and more comfortable to talk about other stuff that might be going on. Like maybe it's so that you can do that for a brief time and think, oh, what other supports might be helpful, and then maybe they are in a better space to focus on the academic stuff. But it just kind of opens it up.
Yeah, you highlighted an important thing there, Kirsty, which is that whakawhanaungatanga that happens right at the beginning, which is we're interfacing, and I see you and you see me, and I'm more than what you see at the present moment. You know, even though I've walked through the door as a student, I might be a mum as well, or I might be working, or I might be doing all kinds of other things. It is about being able to see that person as themselves and to acknowledge that. I love that kind of thinking. Thank you, Kirsty. Anyone else like to share?
Kia ora, Chance.
Kia ora, Rachel.
From the next office, back from you. There's a wall separating us. I can actually hear you without my headphones, and probably you me. One thing I just wanted to share was how important it was to still have those celebration events. So here at Wintec, and kia ora everyone, I'm at Wintec with Chance. In the departments I support, we have little touch points throughout the semester where we're celebrating our students still. So, for example, before our Konga go away on break, we might have a couple of trays of donuts for them, just to celebrate their hard work. And then when they actually return, we do it again to acknowledge that they've come back, because they have made that effort in amongst all the other craziness of life at the moment, and trying to support their own whānau and communities to come back. And we all know that that whole attendance thing is pretty precocious at the moment, right? So yeah, even if it's $50 worth of ice blocks, for a few cohorts of students, it's well worth it, I think, and the feedback we get is amazing. Kia ora.
Thank you, Rachel. And Rachel works predominantly with our trade students, and so you can imagine that that's going to be really beneficial for our beautiful trades men and women. Anyone else got anything to contribute? Feel free to. While people are pondering that, I might do a little bit of housekeeping. I just want to remind everybody, and again, we hope you're enjoying the presentations that have been prepared for you. I just loved the way that we started off with Dina, who just, I keep on saying this to everybody. It seems to be how I felt, but she delivered a power punch to me this morning. Right to the soul of some things that are really important to me, and I was so thankful for it. Just a reminder, everybody, that at 3:00 is our AGM. We would love for you to participate in that space. Please come with us, learn about what's happening with the executive, but also to celebrate those who have life member awards, but also to be thankful for those who will be stepping down from their positions, and to celebrate those who will be stepping in. I've got to tell you, it's going to be a beautiful process. You'll love it on the executive. I'm encouraging all kinds of people to come on, make a difference. Do I have anybody else who would like to contribute? I don't want to take up the whole time. So I'm going to ask this one question. So if people don't respond, can you please remind about the timing of this afternoon? Yes. So just a reminder for Karen's presentation this afternoon, we did get a typo on her presentation, and it is at 2:00, her presentation. Karen, can you confirm that for me? Karen Cater is presenting this afternoon. I'm sorry to say I don't have my, oh, there it is. Yes, that's correct. Okay, so please just be reminded that her presentation is at 2:00 this afternoon in Rumatahi, room 1. Her presentation is a workshop. It is 40 minutes long. And the title is Please Hear Us, What Neurosensitive Students Want Educators to Know and Do to Support Them. I love that.
Oops.
I love that. So just very quickly, has anybody got anything further to contribute around the wellbeing topic? Let me ask you this question then. Wellbeing, as I indicated before, is not just about our students, it's about us. And so I'm just hoping Te Pukenga has been, since we've all moved to Te Pukenga, those of us in polytechnics, have been providing some holistic wellbeing opportunities. I'd love to know how everybody's, if anybody's taken advantage of those and whether they're useful for us as colleagues. Can anybody respond from Te Pukenga?
Yeah, I did. Sorry, it's me again.
Helen.
I like their wellbeing thing, but I started a couple and I'm like, the time went away and they needed me to involve like a lot more time than I really had bargained for. But I can't even remember the name of it, but it's really awesome. I just love it. I love that there's all that extra information and resources on the site that they've got for us. So
Helen, I wondered if you would grab a web page and just throw it into our chat and show people where that is.
I'll see if I can find it.
While you're doing that, Barbara, hi. And I wondered if you'd be able to share something about well-being. What is well-being to you, and how might we go along and engage it with our students?
Well, the one thing I really enjoyed was the fact that if any learning skills tutor thinks that they can deal with learning support when a person comes in with many other issues, I think they're dreaming. They've got to deal with what's happening in their lives before they can focus on the real issues of study. We need to look after our students. We need to actually nurture them and make sure they're in the right space to learn what they need to learn to pass their course, because a lot of students will fall away simply because there's so many other things happening in their lives.
Thank you,
I don't know about separating the roles. I'm of two minds with that, because I don't think we do separate it. I think we recognise that there is other things happening, and that's okay. Especially during COVID, I found with my internationals, we were very few staff here, and I've always dealt with the internationals because I have a little heart for them. And when I watched students come through who had just lost parents or family at home, and here they were in New Zealand, unable to go home, very little communication, and here they were trying to pass a course because, well, the parents had given up a lot for them. They really needed a lot of nurturing before we could actually move through that to their study. So I like the idea of dealing with the whole person. I think it's absolutely crucial that we do that.
And just to, as a final closing comment, perhaps, and just to see how people are thinking, I wondered if you could just remember from Dina, her presentation, can you think of one particular gem from her session or from the sessions that were presented? One gem that stuck out for you? Please share it in this space. I'd love to hear back from you. Those of you who participated in Rumatahi, please share one gem from one of the presenters that you've taken away.
I found the web page too, so it's called Synergy.
That's it. I remember now.
Yeah. So when you log into Synergy the first time, it does ask you to do a profile, and then it tailors content that's directed towards you based on the profile and the questions that you answer. And I'm not sure what's happening. Okay, so that's my profile. I've got challenges. There's challenges you can get involved in. There's a scorecard. You get digital achievements for things. You can tell I haven't done much lately. And you get levels. And then if you go back to home, there's links to a lot of different stuff. These are all the challenges and the contents, and there's discounts on health products. And honestly, I haven't even looked that much, but seriously, it's definitely worth going and having a look at.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, Helen, for sharing that. Anyone want to share that one gem item that's come up for them? If we could have that link shared in the chat, please, Helen, that would be great. No? I'm not going to push everybody's button. I'm okay with people being on the silent. That's cool. It's not about what I want from people. Well, thank you, everybody. I'm going to actually finish this session just 4 minutes ahead of time. That's okay.